Welcome to Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Weldin. Today's story is called The Know-It-All, an adaptation of a Sufi fable written for you by Daniel Hinds. Thanks! Enjoy the episode. The Know-It-All. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Abdul who thought he knew it all. No matter who was talking, no matter what they were talking about, Abdul always had to make his voice heard, even if that meant talking over someone else. His mother and aunt could be having a conversation about cooking, just enjoying themselves on a sunny evening. "And what's your favorite vegetable to cook with?" Auntie would ask. "Oh," Mom would say, "I just love tomatoes." "Well, actually," Abdul would butt in, "tomatoes are really a fruit, so maybe you better rethink that answer, Mom." "Does that really matter?" Auntie would ask. "You know what she meant." "It matters. Half your life is lost without knowledge," Abdul would say, and he'd say it often. It was basically a catchphrase of his, along with, "Well, actually..." Abdul's family told him that his know-it-all behavior was getting old, but he wasn't much for listening. He'd sort of nod along, make interested noises, and then leap in when it was his turn to talk again, usually explaining any number of little things you may have gotten wrong. "Well, actually..." It got so bad that Abdul was barely listening to his teachers anymore. He was convinced he was smarter than they were, that he knew more than they did. Never mind that they went to school for years longer and lived years longer. Abdul was sure he was quicker. They'd try to teach him something simple, like, "Okay, kids, Sufism and its orders were formed in the 12th century. Most of the kids would pause to write, but not Abdul. "Well, actually, they say the first Sufi was after Muhammad passed in 632. "Okay, but that's not what we're talking about right now, if you'll give me a moment to elaborate." Sure. But half your life is lost without knowledge, teacher. Just want you to be thorough." And the whole class would roll their eyes, waiting for the teacher to continue. When school was on break, Abdul's parents decided they needed to teach their son a little humility. "Where should we send him?" asked his mother one desperate night. "He thinks he knows it all. He won't listen to me about a thing. I told him I was going on a walk for some exercise, and he told me, well, actually, jogging is more efficient." "I know, I just like walking." I know, Father agreed. "He corrected me the other day when I mistakenly said it was the wrong day of the week, and then he told me that half my life is lost without knowledge. He said that to me, to us. Who does he think taught him?" "So what do we do?" "I have been talking to my brother Rashid," Father said. "He says that Abdul is old enough to join him on the boat for a week of work." "Do you think that'll help?" "I think he's never been on a boat before," said Father. "He'll find it hard to be a know-it-all when he doesn't even know how to sail." Yes, that could be good for him," Mother said. "If nothing else, some hard work and some fresh air will be nice." "If nothing else, it gets him out of our hair for a week," Father joked, and Mother swatted at him playfully. They loved their son. He was just in an annoying phase. The next day, they told Abdul, who wasn't especially excited about the idea. "Oh, do I have to?" he asked. "You do," Father said. "A little work will be good for you." "But I'd rather stay home and do a little reading. Maybe, talk some philosophy with you?" "It's not up for debate," Father said. "Besides, all the great thinkers took some time to see the world." "Well, actually," Abdul said, "many great Sufis lived as hermits. Really, Father, half your life is lost without knowledge." "That's good for those Sufis," Mother said. "But you're not a hermit. You're my son, and that means you'll do as you are told." Abdul sighed. His mother had spoken. There would be no use in arguing now. "Yes, Mother. he said, and got to packing. A couple days later, Abdul found himself on the worn wooden deck of his uncle's fishing ship. It was large enough for a handful of crew and supplies, including sleeping bunks and a little galley kitchen.
"Oh, don't look so glum, boy," Rashid said, tousling his hair. "It's just a week. Who knows? Maybe you'll even like it."
Abdul nodded, skeptically, and started looking around the boat as they cast off. The crew raised the sails, and soon land was dwindling behind them, the sparkling waters of the ocean all around. When they were cruising, Rashid grabbed Abdul and brought him onto the deck.
"Okay, kid," he said. "First things first, I'm gonna teach you a sailor's knot."
But I know how to tie a knot already," Abdul said.
"Okay, but that's just one kind. Let me show you another. This one is particularly useful on the boat for securing lines. Trust me, everyone finds it very handy."
"Well, actually, I read that sailors in Spain use a different knot."
"Okay, well, this is the one I'm teaching you."
"You really should learn more knots, Uncle," Abdul said. "Half your life is lost without knowledge."
"Oh, I'll give you some knowledge," muttered Rashid.
"What was that, Uncle?"
Nothing. Tell me more about your, Spanish knot."
Abdul started talking and kept talking, and talking and talking. When Rashid couldn't take it anymore, he sent him to his first mate. "Aye, boy," said Hannah, a retired pirate and experienced sailor with a gold tooth shining in her mouth. "How be your swimming?" "Oh, I've never been," Abdul said. "And I think you meant, how is your swimming?" Hannah blinked and cocked her head. "Oh, you never been?" she asked. "You haven't never swam?" Well, actually," Abdul said, "that's a double negative. It should be you haven't swam, or maybe you've never swum, but not both." "All right, well, do you want to learn to swim? Nothing like a dip in the ocean." Well, actually, this is technically a sea, the Arabian Sea." Listen, do you want to learn to swim? I don't have time for this." "You should really make time," Abdul said. "Half your life is lost without knowledge." "Oh, well, good luck with that then," Hannah said, and she gave up too. One by one, he went to the other sailors to learn, and one by one, he wrote them off. They tried to teach the boy, but he found their manner too distracting. He couldn't see past how they spoke, how they dressed, and he just assumed there was nothing they could teach him. On the last day of their trip, he found out just how wrong he was. He woke up to the screams of the crew and the roaring of some great beast. It was an endless howl, an angry scream that seemed to fill the blackness of the night.
"Up, everyone!"
Uncle Rashid was bellowing.
"Abandon ship! Abandon ship!"
Abdul struggled out of his narrow bunk. He could hear more roaring and the thunder of footsteps on the deck above. He fumbled into his clothes as the cabin door was flung open. "Abdul!" Hannah said, rushing in. "We must go. The boat is sinking." "Sinking?" yelped Abdul, but Hannah wasn't listening. She pulled him up the stairs with surprising strength. On deck, the night was alive with a storm. The roaring that had reminded Abdul of a beast was a raging wind, driving a hard, stinging rain before it. Hannah pushed Abdul into his uncle's arms.
"Is that everyone?"
Rashid hollered. "Aye!" Hannah shouted back over the storm. "The others are already in the lifeboat."
"Get in then. We're right behind you."
Hannah nodded and then made her way over to the boat's railing before jumping into the waiting lifeboat below.
"We need to go, boy,"
Rashid said.
"The storm's driven us onto a reef and then pulled us free again. We're taking on water."
Abdul nodded, and together they staggered through the storm to the railing. Abdul grunted. Each step was like walking through deep mud, rushing water, heavy weights. Even pushing as hard as they could, the pair only made it a few steps before a colossal wave swept over the deck. It knocked them both on their feet and washed them into the railing.
"Abdul, hold on!"
Rashid said.
The boat's going to capsize. You can swim, right? The lifeboat's on the other side of the ship.
No, I can't swim, Abdul shouted back, spluttering in the rain. I didn't learn. I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't.
It's too late now, son. Just hold on as best you can.
A wall of water bore down on them. The deck of the boat rose up, and suddenly they were going over. Abdul tasted the warm salt of the sea, and then he was driven down under the boat. The force was so strong, his uncle's arm was ripped from his grasp, and he was lost in the water. He clawed and flailed, but all around him was sea and ship and fluttering sail and darkness. He couldn't tell which way was up. His chest tightened, screaming for air. Suddenly, a strong hand grabbed his shoulder and yanked him. Abdul let himself be pulled, and a moment later, he burst free of the surface. The air above was howling with wind and rain, but it was air, and Abdul pulled in a deep and greedy breath.
Got him, Captain, said Hannah in his ear.
He's a slippery one, though. Abdul felt his uncle's strong arms lift him into the lifeboat and then turn back and haul in Hannah. They all hunkered down together, and soon the storm moved past, and they found themselves in the calm water of dawn.
Thanks for saving me, Abdul said to Hannah and Rashid. I'm sorry I never learned to swim. I'm sorry I didn't even try. He looked down at his wet, bare feet. I'm sorry I didn't listen.
Oh, that's okay, boy, said Hannah with a wide smile, clapping him on the shoulder. Less than half your life isn't not lost without knowledge. Did I get that right?
Abdul blinked, his eyes starting to roll. Well, actually, he said, and then he looked up at her wet, smiling face, his uncle laughing behind her. Well, actually, that's perfect.
Hannah let out a cheer, and together they started rowing, heading east into the golden glow of the rising sun. The end. Thanks for listening!